In the busy alien city of Krell's Landing, ships came and went like fireflies in the night sky. Humans were rare here, and Captain Reed felt every eye on him as he walked through the glowing streets. He had seen many worlds during his service, but nothing like this place, full of strange smells, bright colors, and whispers that stopped when he passed. Reed was tired, both in body and heart. He had come here to trade, not to make friends. His ship, the Silver Dawn, needed fuel and parts, and his credit chips were running low when he reached into his pocket to pay for food. He didn't notice the small brown wallet slip from his jacket. It fell quietly onto the dusty street, disappearing beneath alien footsteps. Hours later, in a narrow alley glowing with neon signs, a small alien girl bent down to pick up something shiny. Her skin was soft violet, her eyes wide and silver like stars. She opened the wallet carefully and gasped. Inside were human pictures, a few coins, and a metallic ID card. She had never seen human writing before, and she whispered the name on the card slowly. Captain Reed? Her small fingers trembled. She looked around. The crowd was gone. Night wind whistling through broken wires. Clutching the wallet to her chest, she whispered to herself, "Maybe he can help." The next morning, Reed realized his loss when he tried to pay the dockmaster. His wallet was gone, and so was his patience. He cursed under his breath and decided to check the nearby streets. But something inside him, a soldier's instinct, made him turn down a quiet path near the slums. There he saw her, the little alien girl, sitting beside a rusted crate, holding his wallet close like a treasure. Reed stopped a few steps away. He didn't want to scare her, but he had to ask. "That belongs to me," he said calmly. His voice deep but gentle. The girl flinched, then looked up. Her big eyes filled with fear and something else. Desperation. She slowly stood and held out the wallet, her voice shaking. "I didn't steal it. I found it. Please don't be angry." Reed took it carefully, surprised she hadn't run. He checked inside. Everything was still there. "You could have sold this," he said, his tone softer now. "Why give it back?" The girl bit her lip, then whispered, "Because I need your help." Those words hit him harder than he expected. He looked around. No one else was near. What kind of help? He asked. She hesitated, her small hands clutching the edge of her tunic. "My mother," she said, her voice almost breaking. "She's sick, and no doctor will see her. They say she's a traitor." Reed frowned. "A traitor? What do you mean?" The girl's eyes filled with tears, glowing faintly in the light. "She worked for the Union. They said she did something wrong. Now they want to take her away. Please, sir." "She's all I have." Reed felt his chest tighten. He had seen this before, the way powerful people treated the weak. He wanted to walk away. It wasn't his fight. But the way she looked at him reminded him of his sister's daughter back on Earth. "What's your name?" He asked. "Lira," she said softly. "My name is Lira." Reed sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "All right, Lira, take me to her," he said. Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You will help?" "I'll see what I can do," he answered, trying to sound firm. She smiled for the first time, small and fragile, and motioned for him to follow. They walked through narrow alleys, filled with flickering lights and broken machines. Everywhere, people stared at Reed, some curious, some afraid. Finally, they reached a broken-down shelter made of scrap metal and old ship parts. Inside, it smelled of medicine and dust. Lira knelt beside a weak figure lying on a small bed. "Mother, I brought someone," she whispered. Reed stepped closer and saw a woman with silver skin, faint markings glowing across her arms. Her breathing was shallow, but her eyes opened when she heard his voice. "Who are you?" she asked faintly, "Name's Reed," he said, kneeling down. "Your daughter found my wallet." The woman gave a weak smile. "Then maybe fate brought you here." Her voice was soft but heavy with meaning. Reed didn't understand, but he felt something strange in the air, the quiet hum of hidden machines. Lira held her mother's hand tightly. "He can help, Mama. He's human." The woman's eyes flickered with both fear and hope. "Human," she whispered. "Then maybe there is still a chance." Before Reed could ask what she meant, a low rumble echoed outside. The ground shook slightly, followed by the distant sound of boots marching. Lyra's eyes widened. "They're coming," she gasped. Reed turned to the doorway. Through the cracks, he saw armored soldiers moving through the streets, scanning every door. "Who are they?" he asked sharply. "The Union Patrol," the woman whispered, her voice fading. "They've found me." She reached out, gripping his arm with surprising strength. "Please, take my daughter. Save her." Reed stared at her, the words hitting him like thunder. He didn't know these people, didn't even understand what was happening, but as he looked at Lyra's terrified face, something inside him made a decision. He had run from many battles, but not this one. He nodded once. "All right," he said. "But we all leave together." Lyra's mother tried to speak again, but her voice was too weak. Outside, the sound of metal boots grew louder. Reed checked the door, gripping the handle of his old sidearm. "Stay behind me," he whispered. Lira clung to her mother's hand for a moment, then to his coat, her eyes full of tears. The light outside flickered red as a loudspeaker called out, "Sarah of the Union, surrender yourself?" Reed looked back at the dying woman, and then at the small alien girl hiding behind him. He muttered under his breath, "Not today." And when the first shadow crossed the doorway, Captain Reed drew his weapon. The air filled with tension. One human, one child, one dying mother, and an army closing in. The night of Krell's Landing was about to change forever. The door shook as the soldiers outside shouted orders. Their boots hit the ground like thunder, echoing through the narrow street. Reed's pulse quickened, but his training returned fast. He grabbed Lyra's hand and moved her behind a metal crate, keeping his voice low. "Stay quiet, Sarah." Lyra's mother lay on the small bed, her breathing weak and shallow. Her eyes glowed faintly with silver light, patterns across her skin pulsing like fading stars. She whispered, "They can't find me alive, Captain. Please listen carefully." Reed looked back at her, torn between the urge to protect them and to get answers. "What's going on, Sarah?" he asked. "Why are they after you?" She tried to sit up, coughing. "I once worked for the Union Science Division," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "I found something they wanted to bury, something that could change everything." She reached for a small metal case hidden beneath her bed. Inside was a crystal data drive glowing with a blue core. Reed stared at it, confused. "What is that?" Sarah's hand trembled as she held it out. "A cure," she said, "for a sickness spreading through the colonies. But the Union doesn't want peace. They want control." Outside, the soldiers' scanners buzzed. Red lights sweeping across the walls. Lira clutched her mother's hand, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Mama, please." "They're here." Sarah smiled faintly. "It's all right, my star," she whispered. "This man will protect you." Reed shook his head. "I'm just a traitor." "Not a hero." Sarah's eyes sharpened with sudden strength. "You're human," she said. "That's enough." He didn't understand her faith, but something in her tone made him stay. The door banged again, louder this time, followed by a cold voice. "Sarah of the Union. Surrender, or we'll open fire." Reed moved fast, pushing a crate against the door. "We're out of time," he muttered. Sarah grabbed his arm and pressed the glowing drive into his hand. "Take this to Dr. Voss on the Moon Arian," she said. He will know what to do. Reed stared at the drive. Why me? Sarah smiled weakly, because no one expects a human to carry hope. The door shattered as a plasma charge exploded, throwing sparks and smoke across the room. Reed shielded Lira and fired back, his old blaster flashing blue light. The first soldier fell, but more rushed in, shouting commands in alien tongues. Move! Reed shouted, grabbing Lira and diving through the back wall's broken panel. They crawled through pipes and shadows as shouts echoed behind them. Sarah's last words carried over the chaos. Protect her. Protect the cure. Then the sound of gunfire filled the night. Reed and Lira ran through narrow alleys, past broken signs and leaking fuel lines. Smoke rose behind them as the shelter burned. Lira looked back, screaming, Mama! But Reed pulled her close. Don't look. Keep running. Tears streaked her glowing cheeks as they disappeared into the neon fog. After a long run, they hid inside an abandoned transport hangar. Lira curled up in a corner, shaking. Whispering her mother's name, Reed crouched beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. She told me to protect you, he said softly. And I will. She looked up at him, her eyes full of pain and anger. You don't understand, she said. They killed her because she tried to help people. My mother wanted to save both humans and aliens. Reed's jaw tightened. Then we'll finish what she started. He opened his hand and stared at the crystal drive glowing faintly. Inside it, small codes moved like streams of light. He didn't know much about alien science, but he knew enough to recognize something powerful. Whatever Sarah discovered was worth dying for. Outside, the sirens faded. But he could still hear drones scanning overhead. He turned to Lira. We can't stay here. They'll be searching every block. Where will we go? She asked in a trembling voice. To my ship, he said. The Silver Dawn will get off this planet. They moved at dawn. Sticking to the shadows, Lira walked silently beside him, her small hand gripping his coat. Once, she stopped and whispered, Thank you. Reed looked down at her and nodded. Don't thank me yet, he said. We're not safe. As they neared the docking district, Reed saw soldiers scanning ships one by one. He cursed under his breath. They're checking every exit. Lyra's eyes widened in fear. We'll never make it. Reed thought for a moment, then smirked faintly. That's what they said the last time I escaped a war zone. He led her through an old maintenance tunnel beneath the docks. The air smelled of oil and rust, and every sound echoed like thunder. Finally, they reached a hidden hatch that opened into the shadow of his ship. The Silver Dawn stood silent, its hull scarred but sturdy. Reed placed his hand on the access pad. Home sweet home, he muttered. Once inside, he sealed the hatch and powered up the engines quietly. Lira sat near the window, watching the city fade behind clouds of smoke. She whispered, She said the stars will guide us. Reed looked at her reflection in the glass. Then we better follow them. Before takeoff, he placed the crystal drive into the ship's safe compartment. As the engines roared to life, he felt a strange warmth in his chest, something he hadn't felt in years. Purpose. He wasn't sure what waited on the moon Narian, but he knew this much. Sarah's death wouldn't be for nothing as the ship lifted into the sky. The night lights of Krell's Landing faded away. Down below, the Union soldiers stood over the burning ruins of the shelter. Their commander picked up Sarah's broken ID tag and whispered, The human has it now. Above the clouds, the Silver Dawn cut through the darkness, its thrusters glowing bright. Reed looked at the small girl sitting beside him. Clutching her mother's pendant, he whispered, Hold on tight, Lira. This ride's going to get dangerous. She nodded, wiping her tears far behind them. A Union patrol ship turned toward the sky, locking onto their trail. The chase had just begun. The Silver Dawn broke through the clouds, fire trails glowing behind its wings inside the cockpit. Captain Reed gripped the controls tightly, watching the radar flicker with red signals. The Union patrol ships were already in pursuit, faster and heavily armed. He muttered under his breath, "Of course they wouldn't let us go that easy." Lira sat beside him, her small hands clutching her seat, her eyes wide with fear and wonder. She had never left the planet before, and the stars stretched endlessly before her. Her voice was small, trembling. "They're following us, aren't they?" Reed nodded. "Yes, but I've outrun worse," he said, forcing a confident smile. Outside, blue streaks of plasma fire cut through the darkness, one hitting the ship's shield with a flash. The control panel beeped angrily, sparks flying across the dashboard. "Hold on," Reed shouted, pulling the ship into a sharp dive. The Silver Dawn rolled through the storm clouds, engines screaming. The pursuing ships followed, firing relentlessly, lighting up the night sky like a thunderstorm. Inside, Lira gasped as the ship shook, her pendant glowing faintly against her chest. Reed noticed it, his eyes narrowing. "That pendant. It's the same light as the drive." She looked down at it, confused. "Mama said it would protect me." Reed frowned. "Maybe it's more than just a memory." He didn't have time to think further. The radar blared again. "3 ships closing in," he muttered, flipping a switch. "We'll try the canyon run." Lira looked out the window as they dropped below the clouds. Ahead stretched the endless ridges of the Kora Desert, deep canyons glowing with molten rock. A ship dived into the canyon, plasma bolts following like falling stars. Reed maneuvered between the walls, the hull barely scraping past burning cliffs. The smaller Union fighters stayed close, firing again and again. Lira cried out as one shot hit their left wing. The metal tearing, Reed fought to stabilize the ship, his teeth clenched. "Come on, girl, hold together." The ship's alarm screamed, warning lights flashing red. He slammed a button on the console, releasing a cloud of counterflares. The sky behind them burst with light, confusing the enemy sensors. 2 of the fighters collided in the smoke, exploding into fiery debris. The shockwave threw the Silver Dawn upward, spinning through the air. Lira screamed as the world turned upside down. Reed managed to level the ship just in time, both hands gripping the controls, sweat dripping down his forehead. "Not bad for an old pilot," he muttered with a shaky grin. Lira's small voice broke through the noise. "What about the other ship?" Reed glanced at the radar. "Still there," he said grimly. "And he's faster." Outside, the last Union hunter closed in, its weapons charging for a final shot. Reed's fuel was low, his shields failing, and his options running out. Then Lira whispered, "Mama said the stars will help when I'm scared." Her pendant began to glow brighter, the light pulsing in rhythm with the ship's engine. Reed's eyes widened as the energy reading spiked. "What the Lira? What are you doing?" "I don't know," she cried. "It just feels warm." Suddenly, the ship's systems flickered, and a strange pulse shot through the hull. The engines roared louder, stronger than before. The Silver Dawn accelerated like a comet, leaving the enemy fighter behind. Reed could barely keep up with the controls as they shot into the upper atmosphere. The last thing he saw on the radar was the Union ship breaking apart. Unable to handle the energy burst, for a long moment, silence filled the cockpit. Only the hum of the engine and Lyra's soft breathing remained. Reed looked over at her. She was pale, but smiling faintly. "Whatever your mother built into that thing," he said, "just saved our lives." Lira held the pendant close, whispering, "Thank you, Mama." Reed checked the navigation map. They were clear of the planet's defense zone. But the next challenge lay ahead, the long journey to the moon Narian. He adjusted the ship's course, entering the coordinates Sarah had given him. Then he turned to Lira. "You should rest," he said softly, but she shook her head. "I don't want to sleep. I'll see her again if I sleep." Reed's heart ached at her words. He understood that kind of pain, losing someone and trying to keep moving. He sighed. Your mother was brave, Lira. She did something no one else would. The girl looked at him, eyes shimmering. She said humans are special, that you fight even when everything is lost. Reed smiled sadly. She wasn't wrong. Hours passed, stars flowing outside like rivers of light. Reed sat quietly, staring at the endless void, his mind racing with questions. Who was Sarah really? What was in the drive? And how far? Would the Union go to stop it? He glanced again at the little girl asleep beside him. Her pendant's light slowly faded as she dreamed. The ship's hum steady and calm. But peace never lasted long in the galaxy. A faint beep came from the long-range scanner. Reed leaned forward, eyes narrowing. No, not again, on the display. A red signal blinked. Union interceptors had picked up their trail. He cursed under his breath. They're tracking the energy signature. He quickly disabled non-essential systems, dimming the ship's lights. Lira, he said gently, shaking her shoulder. Wake up. We've got company again. She opened her eyes, still sleepy. We can't run forever, she said softly. Reed smiled grimly. You're right. That's why we fight smart. He activated a hidden module in the ship's engine, an old smuggler's trick. The silver dawn vanished from scanners. Cloaked within a cloud of ionized dust, the interceptors swept past them. Missing their mark, Reed exhaled slowly. That'll buy us some time. He looked at Lira and said, Get some rest, kid. We've got a long way to go. She leaned against the seat, eyes closing again. Outside the window, the stars shimmered like silent witnesses. Reed's gaze hardened as he whispered to himself, Sarah, I'll get her there, I promise. But deep in the shadows of space, a massive Union warship turned its sensors toward the distant moon of Narian. Its commander smiled coldly. The human thinks he escaped, he said, but we'll be waiting, and far ahead. The silver dawn streaked toward the next chapter of fate, carrying a girl, a secret, and humanity's last spark of hope. The silver dawn drifted through the black sea of stars, its engines quiet, its lights dim. Captain Reed sat at the cockpit, watching the moon Narian grow larger on the screen, its surface glowing with silver clouds and blue storms. Lira slept in the chair beside him, her pendant faintly glowing like a heartbeat. Reed rubbed his tired eyes and looked down at the small crystal drive Sarah had given him. It was unlike anything he had seen before. The data lines inside shimmered like liquid light. Constantly moving, he connected it to his ship's console, hoping to learn what was inside. The screen blinked to life with streams of alien symbols. Some familiar, some not. Reed frowned. Come on, show me your secrets, he muttered. Tapping the keyboard, the system translated fragments of the data, revealing strange terms: genome fusion, cross-species immunity, Terran strain compatibility. Reed's eyes widened as realization struck him. This isn't just a cure. He whispered, It's a bridge between species. He leaned closer, scrolling through Sarah's notes. She had discovered a way to merge human and alien genetic structures safely. It could heal diseases that neither species could fight alone. It was proof that humans and aliens were biologically connected. If the Union discovered this truth, their control over the galaxy would collapse. Reed leaned back, the weight of the discovery sinking in. No wonder they wanted her dead, he said softly. Lira stirred from her sleep, her eyes half open. What's wrong? Reed turned toward her. Your mother found something incredible, Lira. She found a cure that could save millions. Lira blinked, confused. Then why do they want to destroy it? Reed sighed. Because it makes us equal, he said. And people in power fear equality. Lira looked down at her pendant, clutching it tightly. Mama said truth is light, she whispered. And light always returns, Reed smiled faintly. Ben will make sure it shines. Suddenly, the radar beeped sharply. Reed's heart skipped. No, not again, he muttered. 3 Union ships appeared behind them. Approaching fast, Their leader sent a transmission, a screen flickering with a stern alien face. "Captain Red of Earth," the voice said coldly. "You carry stolen Union property. Surrender immediately." Reed stared at the screen, anger rising. "Property? You mean the cure your people killed for?" The officer smirked. "It belongs to the Union, not to a traitor or a stray human." Reed cut the transmission and powered the engines. "Not today," he said. Lira gripped her seat. "Are we running again?" He nodded. Running and fighting. The Silver Dawn roared forward. Engines flaring blue. Plasma shots streaked past the hull. Shaking the ship violently, Reed's fingers danced across the controls, dodging and weaving through the asteroid belt near Nerion. The enemy ships followed closely, their cannons lighting up the dark. Inside, alarms blared, sparks flew, and one of the side panels exploded. "Shields down to 40%, the ship's AI warned. Reed cursed under his breath. "We're not going to make it at this rate." He turned to Lira. "I need your help again." She looked terrified. "Me? What can I do?" "Whatever you did before," he said, pointing at her glowing pendant. "That light saved us once. Maybe it can again." Lira took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Her pendant began to shine brighter, her small hands trembling as she whispered softly in her own language. The light grew until the cockpit filled with warmth. Suddenly, the crystal drive inside the console began to pulse and sync with the pendant. Reed stared in disbelief. "They're connected," he said. The energy reading spiked, and the ship's core hummed like a living thing. Outside, the Silver Dawn released a wave of blue light. It spread across the asteroids like ripples in water. The Union ships flew straight into it. Their systems overloaded instantly. Engines sparked, shields collapsed, and one by one they exploded in a shower of fire. When the light faded, silence returned to space. Reed turned to Lira, who was breathing heavily, pale but smiling faintly. "Did we win?" she asked weakly. Reed smiled. "For now," he said, "you did great. Kid." He guided the ship toward the glowing moon ahead. On the surface, he could see tall towers surrounded by shimmering domes, the research outpost of Dr. Voss. Sarah's last words echoed in his mind. "Take this to Dr. Voss. He will know what to do." They landed near the outskirts of the base, the air outside glowing faintly from the energy fields. Reed carried the drive carefully, while Lira followed close behind. As they approached the entrance, a security drone descended. Scanning them, Reed raised his hands. "We're here to see Dr. Voss. It's urgent." A moment later, the door opened, revealing a tall, white-haired alien with calm golden eyes. "Sarah's messenger," he said softly. Recognizing the crystal drive in Reed's hand, Reed nodded. "She said you could finish her work." Dr. Voss took the drive reverently, his expression a mix of sorrow and awe. "She gave her life for this," he said. "And now the galaxy may live because of her." Lira stepped forward, her voice trembling. "Can you save them? Like Mama wanted?" Dr. Voss smiled gently, placing a hand on her head. "Yes, child. I will try." He turned to Reed. "But you must leave now." "The Union will come for this place soon?" Reed hesitated. "I'm not leaving her here alone." Voss looked at him, eyes serious. "If they find you both, it's over. You'll lead them straight here?" Before Reed could argue, the sound of distant thunder filled the air. The Union warship had arrived. Descending through the clouds, the ground shook as its cannons charged. Red light glowing from its hull. Voss's voice rose urgently. "Go, Captain. Take the girl and the data backup. I'll hold them off." Reed looked at Lira, torn between duty and promise. Lira shook her head, tears falling. "No, you can't leave him." Reed knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders gently. "Lira, listen to me," he said. "Your mother gave her life so this cure could survive. Now it's up to us to protect it." She looked into his eyes, seeing the same fire her mother once had. Finally, she nodded slowly. "Okay," she whispered. "I trust you." Reed picked her up and ran back to the silver dawn as explosions lit the sky. Behind them, Dr. Voss activated the lab's shield. Standing firm as the Union ships descended, Reed strapped Lira in and powered the engines. "Hang on, kid." "We're not done yet." The ship roared upward, flames and smoke filling the air. Through the window, Lira watched as the lab disappeared in a blinding flash. Tears streamed down her face. "He was good like Mama," she whispered. Reed didn't speak. His jaw was tight, his eyes cold with determination. He whispered under his breath, "We'll make sure their sacrifice means something." As the silver dawn left the moon's atmosphere, a giant shadow appeared behind them. The Union warship, the Sovereign, was rising, its cannons glowing red. Reed looked at the display and muttered, "So this is it." He reached for the manual override, turning toward Lira. "Take the pod." "Now." She shook her head violently. "No, I'm not leaving you." Reed smiled faintly. "You have to, Lira. You're the light she believed in." He handed her the small backup drive, a second copy of the cure, and pressed the escape button. The pod launched from the ship, spinning away into the void through the small window. Lira watched as the silver dawn turned back toward the warship. Engines blazing, the radio crackled with Reed's voice. Steady and strong. For Sarah, for Lira, for the truth. Then the stars exploded in white light. The escape pod drifted silently through the dark sea of stars. Inside, Lira sat strapped to her seat, tears sliding down her glowing cheeks. Outside the window, she saw the silver dawn disappear in a flash of blinding light. For a moment, there was nothing, only the endless emptiness of space. Her small hands trembled as she held the tiny drive Reed had given her. It glowed faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat. She pressed it to her chest and whispered, "He kept his promise." "Mama," her voice cracked as she looked out again, searching the void, but the human ship was gone. Swallowed by the stars, time lost meaning as the pod drifted. The emergency systems guided it toward the nearest beacon, a Narian medical outpost. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Please, someone find me." Hours later, alarms blinked red as the pod entered the moon's thin atmosphere. A rescue beacon flared to life, sending out a signal of hope down on the surface. Dr. Voss's backup team detected the signal. A patrol ship raced toward the crash site, landing near the smoking crater. The hatch opened, and a medic shouted, "There's a survivor. It's a child." They lifted Lira out gently, her small hands still clutching the glowing drive. When they asked her name, she whispered faintly, "Lira, daughter of Sarah." The medics took her to the lab facility deep underground. There, scientists gathered around the data crystal with awe. Dr. Voss's assistant gasped, "It's the cure. It survived." Hope spread through the halls like sunrise after a long storm. Days passed, and the cure was decoded. The first successful fusion healed hundreds of infected colonists, both human and alien. Word spread quickly across the systems. The truth could no longer be hidden. Sarah's discovery, carried by a dying woman, a lost child, and a stubborn human, had changed the galaxy. Lira often sat by the observation window, staring at the stars. She missed her mother and Captain Red every single day. Sometimes, when the stars shimmered just right, she felt warmth, like a distant heartbeat calling her name. She smiled softly and whispered, "Thank you for finding us." Months later, a report reached the medical outpost. A rescue ship had found debris from the Silver Dawn near a derelict Union warship. Among the wreckage One human life sign had been detected and brought aboard. When Lira heard the news, she ran down the hallway, heart racing faster than the engines of any ship. She burst into the medical bay, her eyes wide. On the bed lay a man wrapped in biogel and healing lights. Scars covered his arms, his hair singed from fire. But the face was unmistakable. "Captain Reed," she whispered, her voice trembling with joy and disbelief. The nurse smiled. "He was barely alive when we found him. But he's strong." Lira took his hand gently, tears falling onto his bandaged fingers. "Wake up," she whispered. "I still have your wallet." A faint smile touched Reed's lips as his eyes slowly opened. He blinked at the bright lights, his voice hoarse. "Lira?" She nodded quickly, laughing and crying all at once. "You promised you'd come back." Reed looked around weakly, realizing where he was. "Guess I made it," he said with a tired grin. "Again." Lira squeezed his hand. "You did more than that. You saved everyone." Over the next few weeks, Reed recovered slowly. He learned what had happened, the cure released across colonies, the Union exposed for its crimes. Peace talks began between worlds that once hated each other. For the first time in centuries, humans and aliens stood side by side. And in every corner of the galaxy, they whispered the same story, of the soldier who carried hope across the stars. One evening, as the sun set over the glowing domes of Nerion, Reed stood outside the lab, the wind cool and gentle. Beside him, Lira looked up at the rising stars. Her pendant shining faintly once more, she turned to him and said, "Mama always said light finds a way." Reed smiled. She was right. They watched as ships filled the sky, human, alien, all flying together under one symbol, the emblem of the new alliance of worlds, founded on Sarah's research. A small plaque stood nearby, carved with simple words. To those who carried the light when the galaxy was dark. Reed placed his old wallet beneath the plaque. Inside it, a small photo of Earth and a single coin, reminders of where it all began. Lira took his hand and said, "What will we do now?" He smiled softly, eyes on the stars. "Keep flying," he said. "Because that's what humans do." As the night sky turned silver, the silver dawn too lifted from the runway. Rebuilt, reborn, its engines roared softly. Reflecting in Lyra's eyes, the galaxy was still dangerous, still full of shadows. But now there was light, because one human had kept his word, and one alien child had believed in him. Together, they rose into the stars, not as strangers, but as family, and somewhere far away, the stars shimmered brighter, as if Sarah herself was smiling upon them, whispering through the light, "Thank you, my star." "Thank you, Captain." The dawn had returned to the galaxy, and with it, a promise that no darkness could ever break.